All right, well, it is 5:31 p.m. now on November 9th, 2021. This is the regular session meeting of the Monroe County Council. Welcome, everybody. We've got a nice lengthy agenda tonight with some very important things to discuss and decide. So looking forward to that. We're going to do a roll call of all of our council members that are present here. So please unmute your mics and indicate by voice that you're present when I call your names. Council Member Deckard.
Here.
Council Member Hawk.
Here.
Council Member Iverson.
Here.
Council Member McKim.
Here.
Council Member Munson. Does not appear Council Member Munson's with us at the moment, but we will update the record when she does arrive. And Council Member Wiltz.
Here.
Okay, so we've got a quorum. We're going to go ahead and move forward now with our agenda. And the next item is our Pledge of Allegiance, which we do at all of our regular session meetings. So if you'll all join me, please stand and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States
of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all. That was particularly nice with our Veterans Day holiday coming up later this week. So we will now move on to item 3, which is public comment for items not on the agenda. And we'll have 3 minutes for anyone who would like to provide comment for items not on the agenda. Do we have any attendees who would like to make comment? And I see Councilmember Munson is in the, we need to get Councilmember Munson as a participant here in this.
Yeah, one moment, please.
Meeting. We'll get you over here in just a minute, Ms. Munson. Do we have any members of the public who would like to make public comment for items not on the agenda? If so, please raise your hand. You have 3 minutes for comments. It doesn't appear that we do. So I'm going to conclude item 3. And we'll now move on to item 4. And for the record, Councilmember Munson has joined us. Welcome, Ms. Munson.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, next up is adoption of our agenda for the evening. And so we have a few changes here that I'd like to propose. First, Scribner's error was discovered on the agenda, item 9, approval of ordinance 2021-50. Recorder's perpetuation fund should be 2021-52. The paperwork within the meeting packet is correct. However, I just wanted to note that. Also, I would like to continue the following items to the November 30th work session. That would be item 18C, review and approval of proposed job descriptions. Item 18D, review and approval of the job classification and compensation maintenance plan. And item 18E, moratorium on job description changes. And so I will suggest those changes. Do we have any objections to that?
Ask unanimous consent for those changes.
No objection.
And there is no objection, so we will adopt those changes to our agenda tonight. Thank you very much. And we'll now, do we have any other changes or edits to the agenda? And I should check and see if there are none from council. Yeah, Ms. Rice, yes.
I would just make note that the bond ordinance that you guys are going to hear tonight is not for approval of the bond ordinance. It's just a first reading.
Just first reading, yeah. Everybody clear on that? Okay. And before we move on, I do want to check and see if there's any public comment on these agenda updates. Doesn't appear that we have any. And for anybody interested who would like to see the agenda that we're working from this evening, you can find that on the Monroe County Government website. And so now we'll move on to item 5, which is department updates. Do we have any departments joining us this evening who'd like to provide an update for the council? Let's check here, and I see, yes, Commissioner Thomas, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here and appreciate the moment. Just a reminder to folks that the Board of Commissioners, we're happy to work with our great colleagues on the council to provide township assistance funding. And while the governor's order continues for this month, that township assistance funding is available to residents who are struggling to pay for basic necessities like utilities and rent and other things. If you need assistance, please contact your township trustee as soon as possible, as they're administering this funding, and they have also have a lot of other resources available. You can find your township trustee by going to 211 or in211.org. And just a reminder that no matter where you live in the county, whether it's in the city, town, or neither, you have a township trustee that's there to serve you. Also, Commissioner Githens has something to add, and if we could bring her on, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Githens, welcome.
Hi, thank you all. Today I heard that 17 U.S. veterans commit suicide every day. And as you probably know, veterans make up a disproportionate number of homeless people in the U.S. Today I also read a 2019 study by an IU doctoral student on the effects of housing first placement on participant arrest rates. The study looked at 131 local adults and analyzed arrest rates before and after placement, specifically in Crawford Homes 1 and 2. And the result of the study was that there was a rapid decrease in local arrests following entry into a Housing First program. This leads to, of course, lower contact with law enforcement, a lower jail population, and less stress on Monroe County's criminal system. And today, with cold weather approaching, we must once again consider how we will provide shelter to our unhoused homeless neighbors, knowing that there's no viable location available to replicate the emergency winter shelter which the Monroe County government helped fund last winter. So with this as background, I'm here this evening to share with you a potential new initiative within our community and to ask for your support. As several of you know, Beacon Inc., the parent organization of the Shalom Center, a Friend's Place, and several other entities, is envisioning a new building. This new facility will provide an enlarged kitchen to not only prepare meals for Beacon clients, but also to provide the opportunity for job training. The new building, which will be here in Monroe County, would serve as an emergency winter shelter, a low barrier shelter, a separate higher barrier shelter, apartments for stable housing, and on-site client services. The cost is estimated at $10 million. Beacon has an opportunity through the 2022 Indiana Supportive Housing Institute to obtain a $5 million grant toward the cost of such a facility. However, to obtain this grant, Beacon needs to be able to show that a local government entity will pledge, contingent, of course, upon receiving this large grant, but we will pledge money toward the facility. With the American Rescue Plan Act money, Monroe County is receiving, we are in a unique position to make a difference in terms of helping veterans. Excuse me, I got my screen cut off here. We're in a unique position to make a difference in terms of helping veterans, reducing the strain on our community correction system, and providing housing. I'm here before you this evening to ask that you support providing $500,000 in ARPA funding to Beacon for this project. knowing that this type of substantial investment in our community will leverage $5 million from the state. Given that the deadline to apply for this grant is November 22nd, 2021, tomorrow I will be presenting the same argument at the Board of Commissioners meeting, asking them to sign a letter of support for Beacon. I'm here this evening to ask the Monroe County Council to join us in pledging $500,000 for this new facility and for signing a letter of support. Thank you so much for all you do for our community, and thank you for listening. And I believe that Ms. Purdy has put up a copy of the letter that we're proposing to send to Mr. Gilmore.
Thank you, Commissioner Githens. And Ms. Purdy, perhaps send that letter to us by email. That would be helpful. Do we have any other department updates? Okay, it does not appear so.
I think I see Penny Cottle, Mr. President.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Ms. Cottle.
Yes,
Administrator.
hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I will be very quick, just a couple of short updates. The Gravity site, the testing site that is on Cook property, we believe that it has in fact moved indoors, and it is now on the front side of that property, so off Curry Pike. So if you are looking for that, you may when you look for it on the map, I think it still says it's 500 North Profile Parkway, and I believe it has moved to the front side. So what would be the old GE plant? So know it's in that vicinity. If you're looking for it and you go to where it was, the drive-through has closed, they are indoors, and we are waiting to get very specific details from them, and we'll share that as soon as we have them. We are working with our schools to provide vaccinations for the 5 to 11-year-olds. That was just approved. The demand, as with every new group that's eligible, has been high. So I ask for everybody's patience. Our nurses and volunteers are very busy trying to make this work. We have 2 super shot days for any 5 to 11-year-old. The registration is up, but we've been having some technical difficulties. We're trying to work through those with the state. We don't control that website, so we have just been able to alert the state to work with Zotec. So we're working on getting those, and I hope that later tonight or tomorrow, that site will be open and ready to take your appointments. But use ourshot.in.gov. There's a whole list of places you can go across the state. We have a staff person who's been looking, and while you may not find much in Monroe County, there are other counties that are not as anxious to get their vaccinations. So sometimes you can go to one of those neighboring counties and get it as well. And then lastly, I will say, and this isn't as good of news, but we will remain in yellow this week in terms of our advisory. Our cases per 100,000 have dropped just slightly, but they are pretty much where we were last week. That's what I have for you. Thanks.
Thank you, as always, Ms. Cottle. We have, let's see if we have any questions. Yeah, Mr. Iverson.
Just really quick, Ms. Cottle, thank you for being so on the ball with these vaccinations for 5 to 11-year-olds. Not only, I think, is the information that you're pushing out on your website and social media helping to calm parents down, but the paperwork that my household and I know others received through the schools was very thorough, very timely, and was really helpful. As you can imagine, those of us with 5 to 11-year-olds are pretty anxious during this time. So I really appreciate the Monroe County Health Department being so on the ball. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure there are people that don't feel like we're very on the ball because they haven't been able to get that appointment, but rest assured, we will make sure that you can get it.
Great, thank you. Mr. McKim, did I see your hand? No, Mr. Decker.
I was just going to quickly thank Ms. Cottle for coming and talking us through that. I know folks are anxious to get that done, but we've had a lot of patience so far, and we should keep that we took our youngest up to the Speedway, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Saturday. And what amazed me the most was a lot of our Indiana National Guard standing around administering this, doing a great job, along with many great medical staff and folks from the Indiana State Department of Health, and empty lines, and our guards standing in the cold, along with those medical professionals. So there are opportunities out there. I know that's not always the most convenient. I'm just grateful for all that are working with this scramble to get this done and give more folks peace of mind. I encourage the community to continue to give us peace of mind by doing everything they can to get those vaccinations where they need to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Any other questions or comments? All right, doesn't appear so. Do we have any further department updates for council? All right. I think that will conclude all of our department updates for item 5. We'll now move on to item 6, and we'll receive a report now from Mr. Cody Smith, who will give us a presentation on the Hoosier Resilience Index next steps.
Thank you for having me tonight. Can you hear me this afternoon? Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome,
Great.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you. I did distribute the slides I'm about to show you to Mr. Iverson and Megan, who was emailing me just for the logistics of this meeting. So if either of you would be willing to share that with others, if you'd like, I would appreciate that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up and share my screen. And I'm going to pick this window here. You should be able to see that. Great. I'm seeing some nodding here. And it should be just that window, so I don't want to have a split screen for you guys. Is that you just see that one PDF, correct? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to have me here to present to you. My name is Cody Smith, and I'm a graduate student at IU Bloomington, getting a Master's of Public Affairs. I'm also a Community Resilience Coordinator at the Environmental Resilience Institute here on campus. So I wanted to come today to talk to you all about the results, both the results and the next steps from the Hoosier Resilience Index Readiness Assessment. You may remember that Monroe County completed the Hoosier Resilience Index Readiness Assessment in March of 2021 to understand and prepare for the impacts of climate change. This presentation will contain a review of those results, the vulnerabilities that were mentioned to Monroe County before, as well as suggestions for prioritizing next steps, finding relevant funding opportunities, and sharing some case studies from other Midwestern communities who are building climate resilience on a daily basis. So I'll just move on to the next point here. Let me make that a little bit smaller there so you can see that. So this is just a recap of where things stand with Monroe County. When you reached out to the Environmental Resilience Institute, we provide you with a vulnerability assessment. And just to recap, Monroe County does contain 6 census tracts which are in the top 25% of the most vulnerable census tracts in the state of Indiana for socioeconomic vulnerability, and 5 of them in the top 25% for the most vulnerable when it comes to minority status and language, which means English may not be the first language of many of the folks that live within Monroe County. And in addition to that, it's important to remember why we revisit these statistics, because low income and minority populations are often hit most hard and first by the impacts of climate change. So let's talk more about extreme heat and more weather-related climate vulnerability. So here in Monroe County, we currently experience 26 days per year that have an average temperature, reach a temperature above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. We also have 25 nights where the temperature does not fall below 68 degrees. Based on 2 separate emission scenarios, one where we make significant progress as a globe, and the second on the right side indicated by the higher number, where we do not take action and continue business as usual, those numbers are predicted to rise between 74 and 87 in the high heat days and 57 and 69 through the high heat nights. So as we can see, our climate is already changing, and we are simply just doing what we can as a community and as an institution here at IU to figure out what we can do to build a more resilient future for Monroe County. And the last thing I wanted to point out here is just another indication of that. The climate is already changing here in Bloomington and Monroe County. And it's important to note that Monroe County is already experiencing an average of 8.1 inches more of rain and snow over the course of 1 year. That is a significant change, and it's based on historical data. And we define extreme precipitation events as days which more than 2 inches of precipitation falls within a 24-hour period. It's important to note that these projections here, based on those same two emission scenarios, tell us that we will get more events where we're getting 2 inches or more of rainfall. However, it's not going to tell us how much more. It could be 6 inches, it could be 10. So the severity of those storms is to be determined. I'm going to try and continue to move through the rest of these recap things a little bit faster to make sure that we have time for questions and the rest of the agenda here. So please bear with me if I'm going a little bit fast at some points. Another thing that we've shared with Monroe County is the land use within your floodplain. This is important because when we're preparing for more extreme precipitation, surface and river flooding is something that we are very concerned about. You can see that here in Monroe County, about 21% of the floodplain is developed, 42% is wetlands, and 32% is agriculture. And if you're not familiar with the term floodplain, it's the area next to rivers and streams that are likely to flood. I've included an image here of the spring floods in 2021 here in Bloomington, and you can see how Kirkwood Avenue there looked this spring. So now to transition from what we shared with you about the vulnerabilities to what Monroe County's been doing is really important. So you all took the initiative to complete the HRI readiness assessment. That assessment told you what your preparedness is for these 3 categories that we've been talking about. And these 3 categories are selected because they're one of the most easily actionable items for local governments such as yourselves. So looking at these scores here, you can see that Monroe County actually scores quite high in comparison with other local governments across the state. We take an average of local governments, which is 15 of them so far, that have completed the readiness assessment, and those scores are reflected in this 3rd column over here. You can see that Monroe County's numbers, 6.16, 6.77, and 6.75 are quite high compared to those averages. When you compare them to similar sized governments, of which we only have 3 that have taken the assessment, you can see that Monroe County actually does quite well. The highest scoring worksheets that we have are extreme heat. For extreme heat, are emergency management, extreme precipitation, emergency management as well. And floodplain management is also emergency management. So you all are really doing great work on your preparedness for emergency management and dealing with crises as they arise related to the climate, the changing climate. So these are those scores, again, just reflected in a different graphic. As I said, I'm going to kind of glaze over this just so we can get to the meat of today's presentation. Those are the scores that you can look at. As I mentioned, I've distributed this presentation to some of your colleagues for later review. This is what I'm here to talk about today, and I'm going to try and keep the time here so we have time for questions at the end. We have provided Monroe County with a next steps report. What that is it's looking at the next steps for climate resilience in Monroe County. While you are excelling at emergency management and other areas, as you look to achieve greater climate resilience in the county, it's important to review lower scoring areas from the readiness assessment so that we can look at what those actions are. And for the sake of this presentation, I've mimicked the report as closely as possible, which follows these 4 categories that are listed here: social and financial burden, preparing for extreme heat, preparing for extreme precipitation and river flooding, and then a general category that is other actions to consider. It's important to note that all of these investments that you're going to make, according to the Building Trades Council, they say that $1 invested in hazard mitigation yields $6 in benefits over time. So as we look at social and financial burden, these are the actions associated with the areas in which Monroe County scored the lowest on the Hoosier Resilience Index Readiness Assessment. Those areas are listed here below. Those actions are listed here below. Here are some things that you could do to ameliorate the social and financial burdens and impacts related to climate change in Monroe County. You can evaluate how they affect the local economy, whether that's through an economic analysis, incorporating these considerations in climate and disaster resilience into economic development strategic plans. establish some of those protocols for providing assistance for residents who may be at a lower advantage when it comes to having the financial resources associated with higher energy costs, increasing local food purchasing and integrating that funding for readiness actions into the local government's planning. And again, just as a reminder, those communities that are most vulnerable are often people of color, low-income populations, and others with pre-existing conditions here in Monroe County. Now let's look more specifically at extreme heat here. And if I'm getting close to the time, someone please feel free to let me know. These are the areas, the actions associated with the worksheets that you've scored the lowest on here in Monroe County. So considering these actions could help Monroe County become more resilient. Some of these are actually very much within your reach as a local government, including passing a tree canopy ordinance, promoting energy efficiency and waste heat reduction, working to educate residents about the health impacts of poor air quality, providing effective warning programs for helping during those days in which the air pollution is not great. And so making sure that we have processes in place that help us notify especially our most vulnerable residents who may not be able to respond in the ways in which we would hope. You could also develop and implement educational programs about extreme heat and illness prevention, and conducting heat vulnerability assessments and developing heat management plans. There's actually 2 communities in the state of Indiana that are working on that as we speak. Clarksville and Richmond, they're working to identify heat islands within their own communities and make sure that they're prepared to respond. When we come to extreme precipitation and river flooding, this is something I really wanted to highlight for the group here. I pulled out a screenshot from our map that you can access at any time on our website. And what this map shows us is that in this developed area of Ellettsville, you can see that it's very much in the floodplain. And so what we want to make sure that what we're doing, and I'm not trying to call Ellettsville out at all, I'm just trying to make sure that we have an example of what we can do as a local government in building a more resilient future for our community. We can identify the houses and businesses who are most susceptible. That's what this map is aimed at doing. And make sure that we develop and adopt policies and procedures for not only post-flood repairs, but also mitigation, and make sure that we have the resources in place and the plans in place to respond when these disasters happen. And we know that precipitation is falling more so in the winter and spring months here in Indiana, and will continue to do so. And as we saw earlier, it's already increased by 8.1 inches of precipitation historically. So this is something that I think is a really actionable and important item for Monroe County to consider as well. Now, we're kind of getting close to the end here, and this is looking at the other actions to consider. This is a more general category. These are the other impacts that were pulled from the Indiana Climate Change Impacts Assessment, which was conducted by the Purdue University Climate Change Research Center and IU in conjunction with one another. That's what the whole HRI readiness assessment is based on. These actions to consider make sure that we're giving you the most actionable information as a local government that you can take, act upon, and prepare for. Some of those actions include identifying critical areas for ecologically significant areas for different species and habitats for nursery grounds, spawning grounds, and high species diversity. Integrating those habitat protection strategies into your zoning codes, comprehensive plans, and ordinances to make sure that we're really considering the biodiversity of the species here in Bloomington and those which may be the most vulnerable. We also want to understand how climate change is impacting the community, and we want to take steps to prepare. You guys are doing that by taking the readiness assessment. I know there's interest in moving forward. And this next step is something that's also an opportunity to move forward, conducting a greenhouse gas inventory and developing an action plan to reduce these emissions. So this is sort of the adaptation and mitigation side of this process. So we actually have programming here at the Environmental Resilience Institute that can help Monroe County. We would love to help Monroe County conduct a greenhouse gas inventory and develop a climate action plan. Based on a conversation with Mr. Iverson and others, I have kind of checked in to make sure that if you are interested, and I'll talk about this in a second, the resilience cohort here at ERI is taking applications for our phase 2 process. We would have to make sure that you all do have a greenhouse gas inventory in place by about the middle of next year, first quarter of next year, if you're to participate in phase 2. But we can talk more about that as we move forward. And I've linked those resources on the next page below here. You can see that there are some other actions that are here as well. These are all important, removing those policy barriers for energy efficiency and clean energy, making sure that we develop those local air pollution reduction programs, really tackling the source of these issues as we try to both mitigate and adapt to the impacts that we're seeing. I mentioned the resources page that I would have on here. I put the ERIT Toolkit, that's the shorthand for the Environmental Resilience Institute Toolkit. There are a number of example solar ordinances, local policies. In addition to that, we have a collection of nationwide case studies that show what local, state, regional, and tribal governments across the United States have done to build a more climate resilient community. There's a bunch around Indiana who have done a lot of these actions ahead. They also include references to funding sources if you're interested in getting some grant or low interest loan funding. And then the last point here is that our resilience cohort is currently accepting applications for that phase 2 work together so we can both conduct and work to implement that greenhouse gas inventory and reduction plan. So that is coming up next week. We have a webinar. I just want to make sure I point that out. If you have questions about program structure and how that may work, that's next week at 2 p.m. You can check the ERI social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. It's very, very easy to find. And if you can't find it, just send me an email and I'm happy to help you. So this brings me to the conclusion of what I've chosen to share with you today. There's a lot more in that next steps report that you have, and I've tried to keep it to 15 minutes. I think I'm pretty close. I just wanted to end and say thank you to Monroe County, to all of you for the work that you're doing for this community. I'm happily a part of this community. I know all of us on this call are excited to continue to work together to build a more resilient future. The HRI Readiness Assessment was a great first step, and us here at ERI, we are very happy to help assist and continue to partner with you as you move forward. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up during the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. A terrific presentation, great information there. Let's see what questions we have for you. It looks like we have lots of hands going up. Mr. Deckard, you're first.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate how much you covered in the time that you did. I was fascinated by everything you were saying, and particularly around the flooding numbers that you were providing. I have anecdotally felt that and heard that from a lot of constituents and just business leaders and community members across the board acutely over the last particularly 10, 14 years or so. But the question I wanted to ask you, and again, thank you for all of this, question I wanted to ask you, when you were talking about local food sourcing here into the community to those most adversely affected by climate change, do you have any particular feedback from any of our local entities on that provide food? We have so many doing so many different things. Do you have any feedback from them on partnership opportunities or even strong examples in the system of how that's done successfully so that it truly is local and is doing what you intend for it to do?
You know, I don't think that I have an example off the top of my head, but I can say this. I know that Bloomington and Monroe County both together have a lot of great programming around local foods, and with the robust farmers market opportunities that we have. There are probably, I would venture to say, at least a couple of those case studies within the Environmental Resilience Institute Toolkit that you could look to for some examples. I know that my colleagues here at ERI have worked on the local food purchasing, and especially in the context of schools. There are some case studies there that should be able to shed some light on some other examples from across the country.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Iverson.
Mr. Smith, thank you so much for being flexible with your time with us and for presenting this report to us. This is now the second time information has been presented. We presented to the Monroe County Board of Commissioners earlier this year. So I think as many times as possible we can get this information out, the better. It's very sobering information, and I thank you for bringing it to our attention. The last thing I would point out to those watching is that as we're awaiting the final results of COP26 later this week, Cody's absolutely right that Monroe County and the Environmental Resilience Institute will continue to try and work together to solve a lot of these issues around climate crisis and to be more resilient as a community. So keep watching Monroe County. There's good things coming.
Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Ms. Munson.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Great presentation. I have two questions. One, have you been able to present to City of Bloomington in the town of Ellettsville?
I know that the city of Bloomington has completed the readiness assessment as well, and they have received the same format of the next steps report that I just presented on. We haven't yet presented on that report, but I know that there's been a lot of conversation between ERI and the city of Bloomington on their results and then also on their vulnerabilities.
So, and Ellettsville?
I have not seen a conversation with Ellettsville. To my understanding, they have not yet completed the Hoosier Resilience Index Readiness Assessment. That doesn't mean that the door is not open for them to do so. I'd be more than happy to work with the community to get that process started as soon as possible and get done and have that information for them.
Thank you so much for that. My other question has to do with expanding the tree canopy. And I'd be interested in cities and counties that have taken steps to do this. Will that information be available from ERI?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought it up because it made me think of something I meant to mention. We're actually in the process of doing what's called a community of practice pilot series for the local governments who have completed the Hoosier Resilience Index Readiness Assessment. That includes Monroe County. One of those things that we'll be talking a lot about is how do we protect our built environment from extreme heat? We have a lot of great research and researchers here at Indiana University that are experts in this area. I believe it's the city of Richmond. It could be Clarksville. I might be getting the two mixed up. They have a tree canopy in place, and it has made a phenomenal difference in their ability to reduce that heat island effect and make sure that their built environment is a lot more cool and that their vulnerable communities are more protected. So the short answer is yes. Forward to keeping engaged with Monroe County if you're interested in being a part of that series to continue to give those resources.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Munson. And Mr. McKim.
Yeah, so this is more of a comment, but so my colleagues may or may not be aware, but the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation is undertaking a process of kind of facilitating the development of a comprehensive economic development strategy known as a SEDS equivalent plan for the community. And we're actually just in the process right now of trying to look for a facilitator to facilitate that community-wide process. And one of the critical elements of that process is tying in our comprehensive economic development strategy with existing planning work that has been done. And I noted that this the HRI report is not included in any of the the previous planning work that is noted. So I think it's really important that we forward this on to the BEDC to make sure that that this is kind of taken into account as we move forward with that process, because it's I think issues of sustainability and diversity, equity, and inclusion are going to be absolutely essential moving forward for this this process.
Great, thank you, Mr. McKim. And it's nice that we have some representatives at the meeting tonight from BEDC, so we'll be able to get this over to them very quickly. But great suggestion. Do we have any other questions or comments from council? All right. Well, Mr. Smith, thank you again for joining us tonight. Really appreciate all of the thoughtful work that you put into the presentation. There's great material, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, so that will conclude item 6. We'll now move on to item 7 with our legal department.
Council, I move to approve Resolution 2021-59A, Part 1, preliminary approval of a tax abatement for Baxter Pharmaceutical Solutions, LLC.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And Mr. Cockrell, I believe, is joining us. Welcome, sir.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I guess this is a tax abatement application that has been reviewed by the Economic Development Commission. The Economic Development Commission recommended approval of this pending a question about a chemical and whether it was used on the site. The company Baxter does not use that chemical on the site, so I think I'll just let you guys know the recommendation. Now, the process that we are looking at is, as with all tax abatements that aren't already in an economic revitalization area, is a 2-step process. The first step for the council would be the preliminary approval, which you guys have on your agenda tonight. The second step requires some notice to the public and a public hearing at the next available meeting. I think we're going to look for the December regular session for that second step, which would be kind of the final approval of the economic revitalization area and the tax abatement as well. So this is step 1. And I think the big questions are always, what kind of property are they requesting to get an abatement for, and what kind of employment figures do we look at as part of that? In this case, they are looking at approximately up to $40 million in personal property. They do have a building associated with this property, but that is not, they're not asking for a tax abatement on the real property, just the personal property. It's essentially, and I believe Brad Zimmer may be at the meeting, so he's a representative of Baxter. So if I mess any of the equipment up, he can more than happily jump in and correct me. But essentially, it's 2 very large volume filling machines. I think one is 26,000 or 24,000 vials per hour, and the other is 35,000 vials per hour. So these are kind of big pieces of equipment that are extremely expensive. The net result in increase in jobs is 25 jobs with a wage of $18 per hour, estimated wage of $18 per hour, plus an additional, I think $7.50 in medical and dental benefits. They report that 95% of their employees do take that benefit. And I know that's always been a question in the past, as to whether that benefit's any good, based upon, then they look at the base upon the percentage of employees who use it. They have had a tax abatement in the past. I believe that the equipment, some of the equipment has already been ordered. And that's, a lot of that's due to the sign of the times with long lead times to get equipment in. But I think for the record, I think you guys need to know that. More than happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cockrell. Well, why don't we see, I know that there's some representatives joining Mr. Zimmer. Is there any additional information, Mr. Zimmer, that you'd like to provide? If not, no problem.
No, I'm just here to answer any questions that the council may have. I think Jeff made a pretty good presentation regarding the overall project.
Got it. And I also see, thank you, and thanks for joining us, by the way, appreciate it. Mr. Kreiner from the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation has his hand up. Welcome, Clark. He'll need to be promoted. There we go.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, council. My name's Clark Greiner. I'm with the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, and I am the business development director for them. And first, I would like to thank Mr. Brad Zimmer for working with Baxter International and being here on their behalf to answer any questions that the council may have. And I'm here on behalf of the BEDC to really state our support for the establishment of an ERA for Baxter International to add multiple new state-of-the-art automated fill lines. And as Mr. Cockrell indicated, 36,000 and 24,000 units per hour, which is substantial. As you all know, Baxter is a major employer in Monroe County and is a leading global life science manufacturer which has over 50,000 employees worldwide. We have over 700 plus of those here in Monroe County that reside in our area. And so we're thrilled that they're here and that they're expanding here. And then despite the pandemic, Baxter's local management has been able to strategically grow the business to combat the pandemic and related health issues on a global basis. So they produce, as you know, many significant life-saving products. So by supporting an ERA designation, the council supports the retention of the 590 jobs that are currently at the 927 South Curry Pike, as well as the other jobs out at 55 North Daniels Way. And by doing so, it also helps they get to remain in the fight. We do as a community to defeat the devastating pandemic and the impact that it's had all over the world. So would like to really express our sincere interest in supporting this and encourage the council to do likewise. So thank you for your time and all that it considers, and I'll give my time back. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Greiner. Let's see if we have any questions or comments from council, and see Mr. McKim's hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, this is obviously an exciting investment. Glad to see that Baxter is making it here. Mr. Cockrell, I was just wondering, other than the ethylene oxide question, were there any other issues or comments made by the EDC that are of note? I mean, I know they spent more time looking at the specifics of this project.
I think generally, I think they recognize the history of this company in our community, and they were supportive of that. I think that the ethylene oxide was kind of the big question they had. I think they were fairly excited about getting additional equipment and therefore additional jobs and additional work in the community.
Excellent. Thank you.
Ms. Hawk.
Yes, as you know, Mr. Cockrell, I did question the response and about the chemicals used, and was happy that they made it very clear they don't use that, not just on this site. They don't use it at all in Monroe County, perhaps no place, but they were kind enough to immediately respond to my question about that, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Mr. Iverson.
This is a really exciting opportunity for us to make a change in the community, and I'm proud to support it. And I had a question. Baxter's corporate responsibility is really strong, and there's a initiative that they've started called ACT, which is Activating Change Today. And I didn't know if that was present here on the Bloomington sites or not. If there's an answer to that question, it's kind of out of left field, but I'd be interested to know.
I don't have an answer to that question, but I can certainly get one for you as soon as possible.
That's great. Yeah, we're always interested in those great jobs here in Monroe County, and making sure that diversity and inclusion is part of that. So it's always great to partner with such a great company.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Iverson. Any other questions or comments from council? Doesn't appear so. I'm certainly going to be supporting this, and think it's a fantastic plan. So just really want to thank Mr. Zimmer for being here this evening, as well as our partners at the BEDC for all of their work on this as well too. We really appreciate all of that. Let's see if we have any public comment. Does not appear so. So we will now take a roll call vote for preliminary approval of the tax abatement for Baxter Pharmaceuticals.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Great, thank you.
I'd just like to close and thank the council for their time and their consideration and for their approval on the initial vote on this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Have a great evening.
You too. Go Hoosiers.
Yes. Check the score here. All right. Next up is item 7B.
7B, which is the first reading. I think I just jump into it, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, why not?
This is the first reading of Ordinance 2021-54, an ordinance of the Monroe County Council authorizing the issuance of Monroe County, Indiana Economic Development Tax Increment Revenue Bonds, Series 2021, Hunter Valley Road Extension Project, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto. This is the first reading of an ordinance approving the issuance of an economic development bond for the connection of Curry Pike to an improvement of Hunter Valley Road. This project has been a priority of the County Redevelopment Commission and will connect Curry Pike to Arlington. This will be a great benefit to the existing. I don't think I have to read all of this. This is an explanation. Pardon me. I'm going to jump down to making the motion and then reading the actual ordinance. Council, I move to introduce for first reading only and not approval, Resolution 2021-54, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of Monroe County Economic Development Tax Increment Revenue Bonds for projects involved in the acquisition, construction, and equipping of an economic facility. An ordinance of Monroe County Council authorizing the issuance of the Monroe County, Indiana Economic Development Tax Increment Revenue Bonds, Series 2021, and authorizing and approving other actions in respect thereto. Whereas Monroe County, Indiana, the county, is a municipal corporation and political subdivision of the state of Indiana, and by virtue of Indiana Code 36-7-11.9 and Indiana Code 36-7-12, collectively, the Act is authorized and empowered to adopt this ordinance, this bond ordinance, and to carry out its provisions. Whereas Logan Land Development LLC, or an affiliate thereof, the company, desires to finance the design and construction of certain public improvements described in Exhibit A, which is incorporated herein, which are located in or directly serve and benefit the 46 corridor economic development area, collectively the projects. Whereas the company will complete the projects for use in connection with its mixed use development in or directly serving and benefiting the 46 corridor economic development area allocation, the allocation area. Now therefore be it ordained by the Monroe County Council that findings, public benefits. The council hereby finds and determines that the projects described in Ordinance 2021-54, which ordinance is fully incorporated herein and made a part of this motion, and which involve the acquisition, construction, and equipping of an economic development facility, as that phrase is used in the Act, will increase employment opportunities and increase diversification of economic development in the county, will improve and promote economic stability, development, and welfare in the county, and will encourage and promote the expansion of industry, trade, and commerce in the county and the location of other new industries in the county. The council further finds that the public benefits to be accomplished by this bond ordinance to issue bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4,500,000 are intending to overcome insufficient employment opportunities and insufficient diversification of industry are greater than the cost of public services, as that phrase is used in the Act, which will be required by the projects, and therefore that the financing of the projects by the issue of the bonds under the Act, 1, will be of benefit to the health and general welfare of the county, and 2, complies with the Act. Again, this is for first reading only, as final approval will be requested on November 30th. May I have a second?
Second.
All right. Well done, Ms. Wiltz. Mr. Cockrell.
Well, after that, I think you guys probably know everything you need to know about this, but I'll explain it a little bit anyway. I guess I emailed a map to, I think, TSD and Kim and Megan. And I was wondering if they could show that map now. Essentially, the economic development facility as defined under the Act in this case is going to be the extension of Curry Pike to Arlington, basically putting a bridge and connecting the currently gravel road. And in this map, you can see it as kind of the dark blue line where it says Hunter Valley Road. And so that's the project. It involves a bridge. It involves additional roadway. This project has been in that TIF district since its inception. It's a vital connector to Arlington, providing another way for people to get both downtown and to Ellettsville, other than State Road 46. It also it encourages growth in this district. And so this is really a vital project that the Redevelopment Commission has been looking to do. You'll see some lines with other colors on this. Those are other projects that we were looking at, and this was by far the highest priority when both we were talking with the Redevelopment Commission and the Planning Department. So this is kind of an important roadway. This bond is going to be structured similarly to the bond that was for this State Road 46 corridor economic development area before, in that the only skin the county will have in the game is the increment that we received in that TIF district. At this point, the current revenue will not be able to support the full bond. And so for the risk, therefore, is going to go on to the developer Logan Land Development in this case. So if a payment is short, it doesn't go back to the county taxpayer. It doesn't go back to any other county source of funding. It would go towards the developer who was helping with this project. So I think that's an important thing to know. Again, this is a first reading, so I think on the 30th we'll want to do a second reading so we can get so the bond can be closed yet this year. This TIF district, as it currently sits, has 10 years left on its lifespan, and so that's kind of the impetus of wanting to get this bond issued this year.
Thank you, Mr. Cockrell. We'll see if council has any questions or comments for you. Mr. Kent, saw your hand first, and then Ms. Hawk.
Jeff, would you mind just sharing? I know you and I talked about the implications of this bond on our constitutional debt limit as well as bank qualified limit. Can you share that information with the council?
This does not have any impact on our constitutional debt limit. It in theory would have an impact on our bank qualification. It does have an impact, but if we do it this calendar year, there's a $10 million per year limit, and we have not issued 10 million. Even with this, we would not have issued $10 million in debt for this year. So it wouldn't affect any previous bonds this year, and it doesn't affect any bonds next year. So while in theory it affects, I don't think there's time left in this year, even if you guys found a great project you wanted to bond for, to get that all completed by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Hawk.
Yes, if there's just 10 years left on this particular area for the TIF, would this extend that time frame?
This itself this would not.
What do you mean that in itself? Is there any way that this time frame is going to be extended?
Well,
or can legally be extended?
For the current district, no, but if you recall when we looked at the GE plan and we carved that out of that TIF district and created a new TIF, that is certainly an option that could happen for the undeveloped portions of this.
That's a separate TIF though, correct?
Yes, this TIF district itself could not be. You know, the developed areas here, that's the lifespan they have on the TIF district. But something could happen such as carving out a portion of the TIF in the future. That's an availability. But this action does not do any of that.
Does that sufficiently answer your question, Ms. Hawk?
Right. The other question was, in the past, in that particular area, if we granted a tax abatement, there was part of the agreement with that developer that was backing the improvements there, that we would inquire as to whether or not they would also support a tax abatement. So if anything else should come up there that we would want to do a tax abatement, would we still go back to that developer, I forget the name that we're using for it,
Logan Land Development?
Yes, that's the people who own the ground who did the other improvements there for the roads, so forth, correct?
I think as a policy, we have always done that in the past. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't. From a legal perspective, I'd want to get the opinion of bond counsel to give you a definitive on that, because that's in their realm. But I think
the reason I ask is if they're saying they're going to pick up any shortfall of any increase in the values there, and we do something to reduce their ability to do that, then you would think that it should be something in the total documents. But anyway, that's the question.
And I think in the previous bond, there was a section that did discuss tax abatements.
Okay.
I would want to talk with bond counsel before I answered definitively that question, but I would assume so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Councilmember Wiltz.
Yes, thank you. I think my question's probably a bit premature, but to the extent that you might know, where it's marked currently on the map, it doesn't fully connect up to Arlington, but will that still be part of the road improvement there all the way up to that intersection?
I think if I've driven that little section and it is paved already. There's it looks like it's an exit that goes to a gravel road. So there's always a pretty well developed area up there. This would complete the road so that it's all of the same standard. So of the North Curry Pike standard, I think that's
okay. Well, that was my next question. Are we looking at the North Curry Pike standard or that little tiny part of Hunter Valley that's paved standard? Again, I'm sure this is probably pre-planning.
I think we're looking at the North Curry Pike standard.
Yeah,
I don't know if that entrance onto Arlington is at that standard or not. That'd be a Lisa Ridge question.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So Ms. Hawk's hand first, and then Mr. McKim.
Yes, I would just wanted to explain, as you're going down Arlington, if you're leaving from Ellisville, going the old Highway 46, and before you cross over the bridge, it originally had an exit down to 37 from that spot. And this was the original exit that went down, and it was closed off.
Right.
across from the, at Westbury. It was the original exit. So that then just goes right to the gravel road. So there's already an entrance into what we call Arlington Road or Old 46.
Got it. All right, Mr. McKim.
Yeah, I was essentially going to say the same thing. You know, if you drive down there, I don't know if it is technically to the same standard as Curry Pike, but it looks ridiculously over-engineered now. I mean, it looks like you have a full freeway exit there that leads into 1,000 feet of nothing and then a gravel road. So yeah, I think we're probably pretty close, even if it's not actually to the standard.
All right. Thank you for the context there. Do we have any additional comments or questions from council? Let's see if we have any public comment. I don't see any public comment. So again, this is just first reading only. Final approval will be scheduled for November 30th. So I think we'll see if we can do a roll call vote now.
Oh, I thought we were
We don't
not
vote.
voting today.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, just first reading. No need for a vote. That will be next time. Okay.
Yes.
So that will conclude item, what are we on here? Item 7. So we'll now move on to item 8, which is our commissioner's office.
Council, I move to approve the commissioner's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1000-0068 General Fund Commissioners in the amount of $17,500 in the services category.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Welcome, Ms. Purdy.
Yes, good evening. I'm here requesting some additional funding. It's a total of $17,500. Part of that is actually in the professional services line. As you know, we've been coming back to you a couple of times on the professional services line as additional things have been kind of added that have been requested and agreed upon by both you guys and the commissioners. The Baker Tilly invoice was one that I knew that when I had come previously, I had not accounted for an accurate amount of what that invoice might actually be like. So I'm back asking for, I believe, $15,000 for this professional services line. And then our historical records preservation, we did not have any books repaired last year or preserved last year. So we are in need of an additional $2,500. They did 2 this year.
All right. Is that everything? Look at the pup there.
Yes. I thought that if I held him, then I could control the barking.
He's a good dog.
He is.
All right. Let's see if we have any questions or comments from council. Mr. McKim.
Yes, I guess I just wanted to know on the restoration on the books, was there any attempt to maybe come up with a memorandum of understanding or partnership with the recorder's office? I mean, I know the perpetuation fund has a huge amount of money for perpetuation of county records. And so I was just wondering if there was even any attempt to come up with some kind of partnership there.
I actually have no clue. I think that's a really good idea. We can certainly talk with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's not probably part of their constitutional responsibility, but it seems like given the health of that fund and given their expertise and
sure,
preservation and everything, that's something to look at.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. Let's see if we have any public comment. I do not see any public comment. All right, Ms. Hawk, yes.
Yes, so will the motion be that it's subject to the commissioners first checking to see if they could get those dollars from the recorder's fund? Or, I mean, if we just pass it like this, then they won't. have a reason. What shall we do?
Make a motion.
We could certainly, yeah.
Well, I would like to say that that portion that could be charged back to the Recorder's Fund, that the commissioners make every effort to get that done before they would go into county general for it.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? And Ms. Purdy, did you have any remarks as well?
I just need some clarification, only just so I know. Will the appropriation still come? Will this 17.5 be, is that still on the table? Because I don't have any other place to transfer from if the recorder's office isn't willing to pick this up.
Ms. Hawk, you want to clarify the motion?
Right. It seems to me that it would, just because you have an appropriation does not mean that you should spend it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so at least it would be there if you cannot get it from the Recorder's Perpetuation Fund.
Thank you. That works perfectly.
Yeah, and my intention in seconding was to go forward with the full appropriation, just with the request that the commissioner's office attempt to work with the recorder's office first.
Okay.
And then that money would just stay in the general fund and be a part of what will be returned.
Yep.
Very good. Any other questions or discussion on Ms. Hawk's motion?
No.
Do we have any public comment on the motion? All right, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote to accept it.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
return to the underlying motion now and see if there's any further questions or discussion from council. Doesn't appear so. Do we have any public comment? No? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Ms. Purdy. So that will conclude item 8. We'll now move on to item 9 with our recorder's office.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval the recorder's request of ordinance 2021-52, Recorder's Perpetuation Fund.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And who do we have joining us from the recorder's office this evening? Mr. Schmitz?
I think Ashley Craner.
Or did I see Ms. Craner? Yeah. Let's see. Well, we shall wait and see.
I think she's being promoted. There we go.
And Chief Deputy Recorder Ashley Craner will be joining us. Welcome, Ms. Craner.
I just hit the allow to talk button, so I'm not sure if they're available yet.
Oh, looks like she's been.
I can address this while we're waiting.
Okay.
There is a statute in Indiana that requires the recorder to complete an affidavit and for the council to accept that on an annual basis if you want to use the recorder's perpetuation funds to pay for everyday expenses in the recorder's office. So this is something that has come before you multiple years in the past. We use the same form every year. And we're simply asking you tonight to accept the Eric Schmitz's affidavit so that those funds can be used for the expenses of his office.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Ms. Rice. And it looks like Ms. Craner was able to unmute there. Welcome, Ms. Craner. Did you have anything else to add for us?
No, I didn't. Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, great. No, this is something we have to do on a yearly basis for the perpetuation fund, which, as you all know, and maybe the public doesn't, but you all know that is our operating budget, which we use to restore our records and also assist other county departments in doing so, which we've been doing a lot of that lately. Yeah, this is pretty much a standard housekeeping item that the state requires us to do. So yeah, anyway, I'm glad I was here for that, but we just request that you go ahead and accept it as is. Thank you very much, Margie, for stepping up. We appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Craner. All right. Any council discussion or questions for the recorder's office on this request? All right, doesn't appear so. Do we have any public comment? There's no public comment. So Ms. Miller, I think we're ready for a roll call vote, please.
Councilor Iverson,
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Councilor Munson,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard,
Yes, sorry.
Councilor Wiltz,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk,
Yes.
Councilor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you very much, council.
Thank you, Ms. Craner. All right, moving right along. We've hit double digits now. Item 10, the prosecutor's office.
Council, I move to approve the prosecutor's request for additional appropriation and simultaneously amending the 2022 salary ordinance in order to allow a one-time bonus payment allocated by the State Adult Protective Services Department in Fund 9112-9622, Adult Protective Services in the personnel category.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Just a reminder to everybody, this had been tabled or continued from a couple previous meetings. So I think we're ready to take action on it tonight. We have joining us Monroe County Prosecutor Erica Oliphant. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, last time I was preoccupied with a trial, so but Beth was here for me, so that's great. But I'm here to request that the council allow me to offer a one-time bonus to Adult Protective Services staff in recognition of the difficult and dangerous work that they did and continue to do during the pandemic, to be funded by federal grant money that will be awarded through the state. This funding is available through a grant from the Administration of Community Living of the Department of Health and Human Services to the Indiana Division of Aging. This federal grant is meant to reflect appreciation for the work that Adult Protective Services units have done during the COVID-19 pandemic. The funds must be spent by February 1st of 2022. The Monroe County Prosecuting Attorney contracts with the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration to operate an Adult Protective Services hub, and we serve Monroe, Morgan, and Owen counties. The Adult Protective Services Program was established to receive and investigate reports regarding adults within the state of Indiana who may be endangered, and as appropriate to coordinate a proper response to protected endangered adults who are victims of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Part of the investigation process includes home visits to determine the conditions that a person is living in. Home visits are not necessary in every case, but they are done with some regularity. The average number of home visits conducted by our APS staff has been 32 per month. That was both pre-COVID and post-quarantine. When Indiana, and specifically Monroe County, went into quarantine in March of 2020, our Adult Protective Services staff continued to field calls for services and perform intakes on new cases at almost the same level that they normally do. Adult Protective Services is an essential function, much like the Department of Child Services or law enforcement. For the months of quarantine, which ended roughly June 1st of 2020, Adult Protective Services staff only conducted a few home visits. Personal protective equipment was not widely available at that time, and there were still many unknowns about COVID-19. And many of the potential endangered adults are high risk, as are some of the Adult Protective Services staff. The end of quarantine did not signal the end of stress regarding known and unknown risks associated with COVID-19. Adult Protective Services staff could not get vaccinated until February of 2021, meaning that for nearly a year, the investigators and the director were in close contact with people during home visits with little protection from infection. Further, Adult Protective Services staff had to make phone calls and complete paperwork associated with services and benefits for our endangered adults and those under investigation that they normally would not be responsible for, because some of our partner agencies were not operating at the same capacity or with the same procedures as they normally do. The increased risks of the job combined with the increased tasks and responsibility, all of which are direct results of the COVID-19 pandemic, have caused low morale and feelings of burnout among the small staff is high. Monroe County's grant amount is $15,042.47. The State Adult Protective Services Director, Kathleen Altavote, has indicated that the contract for this grant is currently being written and we expect to receive it toward the end of the year. I provided to council a FAQ provided by the Administrator for Community Living, which discusses the allowable uses for this grant funding. Page 6 of that document covers bonuses or hazard pay for Adult Protective Services staff. Our proposed dollar amounts as allocated in our request between the different positions and staff are based on status as full-time or part-time employees and the tasks that those individuals have. So the proportion of personnel effort and risk expended since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. I serve on the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council Adult Protective Services Committee as the chair. And I can tell you that IPAC has let us know as hub communities that this funding is specifically earmarked for this bonus pay for our staffs. I know that Lake County has requested and approved this bonus pay for their Adult Protective Services hub, and LaPorte County is intending to pursue this with their county council. So it's my hope today that this is something that you would consider. It is out of the ordinary, I understand, but I don't think it's completely unprecedented. The closest comparable approved appropriation in Monroe County that I could find was with the Highway Department, and their salary ordinance allows for up to $1,300 a person per year in April as a snow and ice duty allowance. And though I'm not privy to their budget process, I would wager that this allowance is to compensate their employees for late or early work hours and hazardous conditions faced in snowfall. And while the Adult Protective Services staff did expend this effort during their normally scheduled work hours and did not accrue overtime, I would submit to you that, like the Highway Department, Adult Protective Services staff faced and continue to face dangerous conditions in the workplace day in and day out since March of 2020. So, anybody have questions?
Prosecutor Oliphant. Let's see if we have any questions or comments for you on this request. I see Ms. Hawk's hand first.
Yes, I believe this is something that we also, the county, could offer dollars out of our ARPA money for employees as well. That, for instance, the jail staff or any other staff that works with direct contact, our law enforcement, jail staff, so forth. It's something I think that if we approve this, that we certainly should take a hard look at what other employees of county government were doing much the same kind of thing. And as a matter of fairness and equity across the board. I'm certainly not saying I don't support this. I'm just saying that we have other employees doing the same.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Mr. McKim?
Yeah, I'll sort of echo what Ms. Hawk said. I feel like a little bit of a grump. I mean, I am going to support this, but it certainly does open a can of worms, and we're certainly going to have to look at other employees as well. But the other thing is, I hate. It just bugs me when the term hazard pay is used with respect to compensating somebody retroactively. I mean, the point of hazard pay is to incentivize people to take on a risk. And if the risk is already passed, or if the event is already passed, not hazard pay. So, and I get this is called hazard pay / bonus. So let's acknowledge that it is a bonus, not hazard pay, because we're not really incentivizing them to do anything beyond what other employees have to do at this point. But I mean, they certainly have done, a fantastic job during the pandemic, and you can't fault anybody for that.
Thank you, Mr. McKim. Ms. Wiltz.
So one difference, and this is a statement, but it's a question. One difference between doing this and using ARPA funds is that this is a separate pot of money. And so this is not coming out of general fund. This is coming from a specific grant that is intended for this use. Is that correct?
Yes. So Ms. Rice had asked me about, there are some other approved uses for some of the grant money, from the federal point of view. But our state Division of Aging and Adult Protective Services folks have used a lot of that money to provide training. They're working on a standardized operating procedure. They're working on case management software and some equipment, PPE, things like that. So they're using a lot of this federal money in different ways to support Adult Protective Services hubs and the state program that sort of funds us and keeps us going. This was money that they specifically earmarked for this bonus pay for Adult Protective Services staff.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, if we don't allow this expenditure, there's no other use for this money for our folks.
Yes, I believe we'd be leaving the money on the table if we didn't do this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wiltz. Mr. Iverson, and then Ms. Hawk, I believe your hand was up earlier.
So thank you for your presentation. Again, it's always thorough. It's always wonderful to hear your presentations. And what it made me think of was when this body had provided bonus for educational attainment in another department, and WIS had come back and said, that's not an allowable use. And my question, I think, is more for Council Administrator Kim Schell to ask, is this something that should we approve, that WIS would come back and maybe say this is something that we would rather not do, or I guess I'll leave it at
that. No, this is a one-time payout. So this, the other that you're speaking of would have been a continuation on an annual or a annual basis with regards to the salary ordinance. This is just a one-time payout. So this will not continue forward and will not be considered. It's not even part of their salary. It will not receive perf. It's a bonus.
Well, thank you for that distinction, and thank you for allowing me to put you on the spot.
No problem.
All right, Ms. Hawk.
Yes, I just wanted to clear up something that when it was put in place, the extra dollars to be added on to for the highway. It was also in part because they have to make a commitment for the people who do work the snow removal, not to leave, not to take vacation, that they are taking that entire snow period time to remain in Monroe County, so that they'll be available for their service. I expect that is still the case. It was supposed to have been the case when it was put together. So, and that's kind of a big deal. While the rest of us are, well, I don't get to go anymore because I can't fly. But for those of you who can, you're enjoying some time at the beach or whatever, but our snowplow drivers are not doing that. They must stay here or nearby where they can get out and get behind the wheel. So.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. Any other questions or comments from council? I'll just say that I'm looking forward to supporting this and voting in favor of it. And I too would agree with Ms. Hawk's earlier statement that if we can find ways to use ARPA dollars to assist employees, I think that would be good. I think some of that ARPA money should go to assisting our employees who have worked through this pandemic, and that's certainly a use for it. Easy for me to say. I don't have much time left on this council, but there's 4 years to make those decisions, and I certainly think that would certainly be a good use of those dollars, but I am looking forward to supporting this tonight. Any public comment? Doesn't appear that we have any, so we will take a roll call vote, please.
Claire Wills.
Yes.
Was that yes? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Councilor Munson.
Yes.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes.
Councilor Iverson.
Yes.
Councilor McKim.
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Councilor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you
All
all.
right. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, moving on now to item 11, probation and community corrections.
Sorry, I was still reading the comments. Oh my goodness, sorry. Item 11. Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriation in Fund 9424-9621 CARES grant in the amount of $1,851.87 in the supplies category and $2,841.84 in the services category, for a total of $4,693.68.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and Ms. Strite is joining us this evening. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. Becca Strite, Community Corrections Director and Deputy Chief Probation Officer. So the Monroe County CARES Board provides funding to local community agencies that address problems related to substance abuse. And for this upcoming grant cycle, both our drug treatment court and community corrections applied and received grant funding. The drug treatment court received funding to purchase drug testing supplies, specifically instant cup urine tests, which allow us to receive immediate results rather than send the sample to the lab. And then community corrections, in many prior years, we have always applied for funding for alcohol sensor breathalyzer tests. But due to the pandemic, we had to put a long pause on doing those since it wasn't safe. So this year we applied for funding and received funding to purchase something called the Change Company's interactive journals. We've been using these in our probation department for several years. And these journals are an evidence-based intervention that are used to help clients develop pro-social thoughts, learn coping skills, and pretty much readjust and make new behaviors in an effort to reduce the likelihood of reoffending. And so by using this funding from the CARES grant, we're actually able to increase our inventory and explore some other topics of journals apart from what we've been using in the past.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Drake. Let's see if we have any questions or discussion from council. Mr. Iverson, yes.
It's just so nice to hear that these dollars are being spent in such an evidence-based way, and it's just so refreshing to see that these dollars are being used in such a great way. So, thanks for sharing this all with us.
Anything further from council? Do we have any public comment? There's no public comment, so we will take a roll call vote, please.
Councilor Hawk,
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard,
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Councilor Munson,
Yes.
Councilor McKim,
Yes.
Councilor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for additional appropriations in the following funds. 9142-0000 Community Corrections Grant in the amount of $1,049,167 in the personnel category. In Fund 9144-0000 Pretrial Services Grant in the amount of $271,866 in the personnel category. Fund 9148-0000 Drug Court Grant in the amount of $157,711 in the personnel category, and Fund 9150-0000 Mental Health Court Grant in the amount of $49,376 in the personnel category, and to simultaneously amend the 2022 salary ordinance as outlined in the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. What we've done here is kind of nice. We've combined items 11B through E, and we'll do this all in one fell swoop. Should help us save a little bit of time here. But we'll see if we have any questions or discussion from council on that motion from Ms. Wiltz.
Oh, can we have are there any comments from the petitioner?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
This is a pretty big one.
Ms. Strite, yes.
Thank you. So 2022 will be our 39th year receiving grant funds from the Department of Correction. The Department of Correction provides funding for our county for 4 different community corrections programs, or as they call them, entities. And this includes our community corrections program, drug treatment court, mental health court, and pretrial. I will note that in the past few years, our pretrial funding has been included in our community corrections entity, but for this upcoming grant, Department of Correction required that we separate that into its own grant, which is why there's 4 when previous years there have been 3 entities. I'm very excited to share that for 2022, the Department of Correction awarded our county, our department, a grant increase of just over $172,000 more from the 2021 award. With this increase, we were able to not only continue to fund existing positions, but we were also able to apply more funding from the grant to staff salaries and benefits to relieve some of the burden off of the community corrections user fees. And then we also were, we always ask and hope for a good answer. We asked for funding to create a new position called Evidence-Based Practices Court Training Coordinator. So for the first entity, community corrections, that funds programs like our home detention, electronic monitoring, day reporting, and it includes funding for staff. Regarding the new evidence-based practices coordinator position, this is funded through the Community Corrections Grant, but will benefit our entire probation department. So gone are the days of probation where clients come in for a 5 or 10-minute appointment and we go through a checklist of conditions. Now we have completely embedded ourselves in this mission of evidence-based practices, and all staff have the responsibility of helping clients make meaningful behavior change, everywhere from our receptionists to our probation officers and our supervisors. Our probation officers go through rigorous trainings in different areas of evidence-based practices, which include things like cognitive behavioral interventions and motivational interviewing. And we know from experience that these skills just can't be mastered if we only train and then do no follow-up. So our evidence-based practices coordinator is going to be able to provide ongoing trainings, coaching, mentoring, and feedback as we all work to become proficient in these evidence-based practices and these skills. Moving on to the pretrial services grant entity, as you will recall, pretrial services in Monroe County began as a pilot program in 2016. We were one of 10 other counties in the state. And as a result, our program has had the honor of influencing other state or other county pretrial policies and procedures. And we have been a mentor and coach to many of those counties as they're developing their own pretrial programs. Another exciting thing to share is that in April of this year, we were officially certified by the Indiana Office of Court Services, which means we are a working, stable, very good pretrial program. And the Department of Correction this year required any county who is applying for pretrial funding to either be certified by the Indiana Office of Court Services or in the planning stage of creating a program. The next grant entity is Drug Treatment Court, which is in its 22nd year here in Monroe County, led by Judge Mary Ellen Dekoff. Last week, Drug Court had its 491st graduate, and the just a shout out to Judge Dekoff and her drug court team. They continued to work and hold court and uninterrupted all through the COVID pandemic, even during the shutdown. It was a little unconventional, but they made it work because we know that stability and seeing the judge is such a vital piece to support change and accountability during recovery journeys. And then the last grant is the Mental Health Court Grant, which is in its 7th year, also led by Judge Dekoff, and it most recently had its 21st graduate. So that is my summary.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see if we have any questions or discussion from council. It's an excellent summary, by the way. Thank you. Mr. McKim.
Yeah, I just want to comment how important this program is for the county. I don't think people realize it, but and the vote is not controversial, so it doesn't get a lot of attention. But I mean, this is big, and if we talk about, we all agree how important it is for us to keep people out of jail. This is one of the big things that we do to keep people out of jail. It's the series of programs that are represented by this, funded by this grant right here too. And I'm also glad to hear about pressure being taken off of user fees. I would really like to see user fees still dramatically reduced. I mean, I know that the courts have done a great job in doing what they can, but I'd like to see us continue to make progress in that direction. So I was really excited to hear that, that this grant is holding, or these grants are holding up in a way that we don't have to be depending as much on user fees.
Thank you, Mr. McKim. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Deckard.
I appreciate very much the thorough presentation of this information. And again, I'll reiterate a comment that I often make. If you have any interest in how much is happening from federal and state dollars that come into our community and assist with funding things, just watch a county council meeting where you'll see grants come to life. And part of that is that we have really, really excellent elected officials and department heads that run departments who go after these grants, get these, secure these, and bring them home. And the other thing that I just want to add is I was extremely impressed the very first time I was in the probation office, and I was actually looking at one of those journals that you referenced earlier. And it literally said, when this happens, this bad moment in my life, these are the things that are going on. And it was reflective in that for those that are working on that journal. And I struggle to think of any place, school and otherwise, where we're reflecting on the things negative that are happening, associated, and getting us to think there are negatives. And I think that's very intentional. I think that we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. I want to make that comment. This, as Councilor McKim said, these are huge things, and there's been a lot of work and practice that have gone into that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Any other questions or comments? Council? Have any public comment? All right. We're ready for a roll call vote.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great evening. That will conclude item 11. We'll now move on to item 12, our Health Department.
Council, I move to approve the Health Department's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 8153-9622 harm reduction in the amount of $64,514 in the personnel category and $736 in the services category for a total of $65,250, and to simultaneously amend the 2022 salary ordinance as outlined in the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Monroe County Health Administrator Penny Caudle is joining us for this. Welcome, Ms. Caudle.
Good evening. Thank you. So as you know, the past several years, we've had this grant to fund community health specialists focusing on harm reduction, who not only works and provides some assistance to technical assistance to our syringe service program, but does active harm reduction within our community. So teaching about naloxone, training people to use it, distributing it, doing hepatitis C testing, HIV testing in our community, ensuring that we have disposal units out in the community, educating people on how to safely dispose of. She does collections, all of those things and more. This grant just covers really the personnel. There is some travel line in here, but it is a calendar grant. So it's January through December. We've submitted our application and we are waiting on the official award, but we don't want to wait until that's received to appropriate it, because we may not have funds to pay her as we start into claim 1, 2, or 3 or 4. So we want to make sure that the position is filled and paid. And so we're asking you to go ahead and appropriate the funds so that when the award comes, we'll be ready.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Caudle. Let's see if any council members have comments or questions on this request. Ms. Hawk, Ms. Wells.
Yes, thanks. This to me is a very important program that we have in our county. And I appreciate you also forwarding the information brief on the program earlier today. And I was looking through it, and it strikes me that I'm trying to find the right spot, but the all of the data that you share showing how important having a SSP is, and then just how undermining some things can be, such as legislation making possession of a syringe illegal. And I'm sad to see that, and I appreciate you working in the face of those challenges. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ms. Wiltz. Do we have any other council members who have comments or questions on this request? Looks like we do have some public comment. So I guess we'll go now to the public. Looks like Ms. Craner has her hand up. Welcome back, Ms. Craner.
Hello, council. Hi, I'm back this time as the vice chair of the health board. And I'm here to ask for your support, which I have all the confidence that you guys will. It's kind of a trying age that we're in, that we're having still to deal with the opioid crisis and COVID, and now we have flu coming up. I think it's just super important that the community and the council are constantly reminded that disease is prevalent, and the health department and all of the work that Penny does is super important, and we must support all of the funds that we get and allow for the easy transition to allow those funds to come in. And I have to say that over the course of the years that I've been on the health board, these last several years, the council has made the funding revenues coming from the federal government or the state so much easier, so that these lines and the funds are created so that we can just continue care and community prevention and education. So I'm just here to support Penny and here to support you guys and support the community. So that's all I had to say. Thank you very much tonight.
So thank you for your comments, Ms. Craner. See if we have any other public comment on this request. Does not appear so. I think we're ready for a roll call vote. Ms. Miller.
Councilor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Councilor Iverson,
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz,
Yes.
Councilor McKim,
Yes.
Councilor Munson,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, very good.
Council, I move to approve the Health Department's request for a category transfer in Fund 8150-9621 TANF Futures of $1,774.41 from the supplies category and $1,437.49 from the services category, for a total transfer of $3,211.90 to the personnel category, and to simultaneously approve additional appropriations of $13,904 in the personnel category.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Caudle.
Great, thank you. As you know, the TANF money, which is temporary assistance to needy families for family planning, runs an October through September cycle. And so this is sort of a housekeeping at the end of that cycle and cleanup. But when we came to you originally, we had appropriated $98,077. And after that, we received some additional money from our funder, Indiana Family Health Council, to purchase long-acting reversible contraceptives. And we received an additional $8,039 in revenue that we had not anticipated and appropriated. So that's where that additional appropriation is coming in. And this will just even out all of those supply lines. This is always a little bit of, I'm not sure, Sudoku, and where's the ball in the cup kind of thing as we come near the end of the grant cycle. So it's kind of a lot to watch, and our financial manager did a good job of putting this together. So we just want to get the money appropriated that we didn't expect and put it in the right places.
Very good. Thank you for that information. Let's see if we have any questions for you or comments. Doesn't look like it. See if we have any public comment. No public comment, so we'll take a roll call vote.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you. We appreciate your support on both of these.
Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. Have a great evening. Up next is item 13, our Youth Services Bureau.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Services Bureau's request to create new account lines and additional appropriations in Fund 8120-9622 Runaway and Homeless Youth in the amount of $142,635.65 in the personnel category, $8,340 in the supplies category, and $18,269.35 in the services category, for a total of $169,245, and to simultaneously amend the 2022 salary ordinance as outlined in the agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I see our friend, Deputy Director of the Youth Services Bureau, Louis Malone, is joining us this evening. Welcome, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me today. I'll try to make it brief. We did write and were awarded the grant earlier this fall. We wrote and applied this summer, and then were awarded this fall. So we were just hoping to appropriate these funds. This is a 3-year grant. It does pay for our one of our counselors, one of our master's level clinicians, as well as our Safe Place and YSB Outreach Coordinator. That is a very long title. I think it's changing with some of the changes, but we pay for both of those positions, as well as provide funds that support the Basic Center program. And so I'm open to any questions that anybody might have.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir. Let's see if we have any questions or discussion on this request. Ms. Munson, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. This is such an important grant for YSB. And I'm just thrilled that you have a great track record bringing in grant after grant. And for the public, if you see those yellow caution signs that say safe place, please know that those places are partnering with YSB to provide a contact point for youth to get to a safe place. And thank you to all the Safe Place holders.
Great, thank you, Ms. Munson. And Ms. Hawk, yes.
Yes, a great big thank you to YSB. We've come a long way from Monroe County. And for those who have been around since before you children were born, we had a site downtown. It was a house that we rented, and that's what we used for our youth shelter. And so when we built this present youth shelter, named after our wonderful council member, Morris Bankley, who's really supported the youth services, that's when we saw the turning point. And then we relied heavily on these grants because to operate this youth shelter, the dollars came right out of our frozen levy, out of the general fund. And so when we switched over to the income tax, which I really didn't want to do it in that favor. I wanted it to be the public safety income tax, which could have brought in the money for the youth shelter, as well as help us out with public safety. But we didn't get the support to do that. but it's important that we support the youth, that we do what we can to keep them out of trouble, keep their hands busy, and try to get them on the right path in every way we can. So appreciate all the help that we get there at the youth shelter.
Thank you, Ms. Hawk. And I had no idea that I learned something new in every single meeting, multiple new things in every single meeting. I so much appreciate the historical perspective. I did not know that about Morris Binkley, that he was a council member. I should have known that. Very cool.
And Roberta, what's her last name? Wysong? Do I have the name right?
Yes, I believe yes.
Right. And that she needs to be remembered as well, because without her persistence, I'm not sure we would have had all of the services that we have for our youth. And not many counties have that. We're very rare indeed.
Actually, if I could speak to that, we had a federal audit. They call it a virtual site review, but that's an audit. And they commented on how lucky we are in Monroe County, because most basic center programs do not have the support of the county government, are not a part of county government, and do not have the ability to serve the children the way we do. And so that is a testament to everybody who, well before when I was associated with the organization, and the people who continue to work now to make this a wonderful, wonderful place for kids in need, and to pull something from what we talk about in the prevention side of our programming. We want to make this the best place in Monroe County, the best place in the country to raise a child, Monroe County. And so that means having prevention programming and doing the macro stuff on one side, but also when people are in crisis, we want to make sure they have the best place possible. And we're lucky to have RHY to help us with that. They offer technical assistance, which is really helpful, and they keep us on our toes, making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. And we have the support of the county government, which has always been so we're so thankful for. And so that is, yeah. So I wanted to comment on that. I also wanted to reiterate what Cheryl said. Thank you to everybody who is a Safe Place site. They extend our doors, the doors of the Binkley House Emergency Youth Shelter, out into the community, so that if you get on a bus and you say, I need a safe place, they will drive you to our facility. If you walk into one of those places saying, I need a safe place, there's someone able to answer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we will be there to help you with our counselors and everybody else. And I want to mention one other thing, if I could. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So as we approach the holiday season, I know sometimes the office is closed. I may be on call, but I get to go home. But our staff have to be there every day and provide the holidays and everything else for all of these kids who are staying with us. And so I want to keep that in mind, that we're there all the time. And those staff are so committed, and I appreciate them as well.
You had mentioned, this is all kind of a testament to Monroe County, but I think you're selling yourself short a little bit there. It's a testament to the staff at the Youth Services Bureau, as you mentioned, and their dedication to those kids and to the community. And we can't do these great things without great people working for us. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from council? Do we have any public comment? All right, we will take a roll call vote, please.
Councilor Munson,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk,
Yes.
Councilor Iverson,
Yes.
Councilor McKim,
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Councilor Deckard,
Yes.
Councilor Wells.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Malone. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
All right, up next is item 14, our surveyor's office.
Council, I move to approve the surveyor's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1202-0000 Surveyor's Corner Perpetuation in the amount of $45,000 in the services category.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we have Monroe County Surveyor Tron Enright Randolph joining us this evening. Welcome, sir.
Hello, thank you. Yes, a pretty hefty agenda, and I applaud you all for getting through it today. I know it's the end of the year, so a lot of these are pretty critical to make a decision on. So I'm happy that you could find time for me. And with that said, I'll just kind of jump right into it. I have spoke to the council about my approach with reaching out to private professional surveyors to conduct a boundary perpetuation of 4 actually sections at a time is our approach. So this request is for $45,000 of additional appropriation out of the section corner perpetuation fund. It's a dedicated fund that could only be used for this type of work. With having professional surveyors conduct a boundary perpetuation survey, we get to do way more extensive work on the field to determine and render our decision with holding these monuments that make up our public land surveying system. So this goes in line with my ability, or with my efforts to heighten the standards at the surveyor's office when we had a professional surveyor in-house. So this will support a couple more service agreements. I just have recently taken the last service agreement to the county commissioners, and it got approval. So the fund currently right now won't sustain any more service agreements. I currently have one in the queue to take to the commissioners if the council approves this today. And I intend to reach out for 2 more agreements that will be, well, the funds will be obligated for the 2021 year. Some of the work may not be performed until 2022, just due to the profession being inundated with work. And also with conversations across the state and at the recent geospatial forum, which I was honored to help to have a hand in with setting up and kind of coordinating and bringing forward a large discussion that is now taking place, which coincides with boundaries. So moving forward, I intend to, even if we do successfully get a professional surveyor, continue this approach with lighting service contracts. And I'm going to now redirect my focus to perpetuating the county boundaries where we can get geodetic controls. After the county boundaries, I intend to perpetuate the townships. And then after the townships, we can then start focusing on each individual section of our community. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm here for any questions. I can even share my screen if someone wants me to give them, you know, the the elevator pitch of what section corners in the public land surveying system is.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions or comments for Mr. Enright Randolph. Thank you for that information. It's pretty straightforward to me.
It is, and the fund is completely sustainable, and I will definitely bring it to everyone's attention when we need to start discussing any issues with the stability of that fund, but we should have none. It has a healthy balance right now.
Very good. All right, well, if there is nothing from council, we'll see if there's any public comment. Any public comment? I don't see any. So well, I think we'll take a roll call vote here.
Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Councilor Iverson?
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councilor Munson?
Yes.
Councilor McKim?
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz?
Yes.
Councilor Hawk?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you so much. Have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, Mr. Surveyor. Have a good evening as well. We'll now move on to item 15, emergency management.
Let's see, council, I move to waive the compensatory time payout policy for this one payout and allow the payout to be made from the Emergency Management's General Fund and to simultaneously add account line 18501 comp time payout to Fund 1000-0361.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And Ms. Petrolane, welcome.
Hello, people of the council. It's good to see all of you. I come to you as the newly appointed director, hence why I'm here to talk about my transition. So, as most of you know, I was Deputy Director of Emergency Management, and that was a hourly non-exempt position. And so therefore I accumulated some comp time. And then now taking the director position, that is a salary exempt, where therefore I would not have any comp time. In that transition, I acquired 30.01 hours. I have no idea where that 0.01 came from, but it's there. And I am asking for it to be paid out due to the fact that the 2 years that I was deputy director, I was unable to use it because we were, well, in a COVID response, and having an office of 2 people, it was very hard to kind of use those hours. And not only when we were doing COVID response, we had a couple of different disasters going on at that time. And then we also were trying to do our daily duties with presentations. And I did my best to flex my time within certain claims, but it just didn't happen. So here we are at 30.01 hours. And then going forward, I don't necessarily see the ability to be able to use that comp time, being as right now I am a department of 1. Hopefully soon I will have a second in command, and therefore having been that deputy position, I know for the first couple of months it's a little nerve-wracking. If your director leaves for a little bit, you don't have those ideas to bounce off of. So I want to be there for my team and my office going forward. I do have a letter supporting this decision from my EMAC board, and it is attached in the agenda. And I guess that's all I have, unless there's some questions for me.
Well, thank you very much for that information and for being here to present it. And we'll see if there are any questions or if there's any discussion from council. Anything from council? Doesn't appear so. So we'll check to see if we have any public comment on this. Okay, I don't see any public comments, so I think we're ready to vote.
Councilor McKim,
Yes.
Councilor Iverson,
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz,
Yes.
Councilor Hawk, not present, Councilor Deckard,
Yes.
Councilor Munson,
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
So
Thank you.
you'll have to turn the fireplace on. It's getting cold in here. Sorry.
I'm about to do the same. It is getting a little chilly. Okay, up next is item, what are we at, 16 now?
Well, council, I move to approve the jail/correctional center's request to approve liaison correctional officer job description and simultaneously amend the 2022 salary ordinance in Fund 1000-0380, General Fund Jail, and amend account line 10663 from correctional officer to liaison/correctional officer.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And let's see who we have joining us here. Yep, Mr. Deckard.
Yeah, due to some illness, Colonel Crow could not be with us tonight. So I had communicated to the council office that I could step in here, and certainly this was an issue that came before PAC. So if you're good with that, I'll proceed.
Yes, thank you, sir.
So this liaison correctional officer position was a request at the jail had offered to us. And a description was created in our on behalf of PAC, sent off, of course, to WIS, and then came back. I'll do my best to paraphrase what some of what Colonel Crow told us, but essentially it's a position that does communicate between inmates, friends, and family of inmates, vendors, program providers, as well as jail staff in general. One of the questions that PAC had: is this a position beyond those that are currently established? And the Colonel Crow's response was essentially this is taking what multiple jail officers, correctional officers had been doing before, and combining or taking all the elements of that they had about 5 officers have been doing, and putting this specifically into one position. Specifically, it's an apple to different kind of apple comparison, given you have, I had to get that back in there, given that you have correctional officers and liaisons that would remain at the same category. And so this is just an effort to codify into job descriptions what the jail had currently been doing with multiple officers into one, and does not have a financial burden upon the county budget.
We're talking honey crisps and Red Delicious here is kind of the comparison we're making.
That is correct.
And thank you,
Or Gala, my favorite Gala.
Yeah, Gala's good. That's okay.
I
Randy
vote for
Smith.
Honey Crisp too.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Deckard, for that presentation of information there. Let's see if we have any questions about this from council. Mr. McKim?
So just to be clear, this is not adding an additional slot. This is simply replacing one corrections officer position with liaison / corrections officer.
And correct. And that question was asked at PAC. It was confirmed that it's not a new position, and there would not be a request for another new position in the future to make up for this as well. So truly no fiscal impact of this.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Do you have any public comment? All right, we'll take a roll call vote.
There we go. Sorry. Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
All right, very good. Okay, and next up is item 17, our Public Defender's Office.
Council, I move to approve the Public Defender's request to add 2 additional investigator positions to Fund 1000-0271 General Fund Public Defender, and simultaneously amend the 2021 and 2022 salary ordinances to add account line 13016 investigator and 13017 investigator as outlined on the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. And Ms. Stuffle from our Public Defender's Office, and Mr. Mason is joining us. And Mr. Mason was with us at the previous PAC meeting as well too, to provide some very helpful and useful information on this request. So I'll let both of you provide any further information that you'd like the council to take into consideration.
Hello, council. So our department has been invited to participate in a pilot program from the Indiana Public Defender Commission, which is who provides our 40% reimbursement to the county every quarter. Derek Mason is the director and chief staff attorney and is here. I have him here to talk about and answer any questions that you all may have about this program that is going to require these 2 investigator positions. Derek.
Yes. So, well, hello, everyone. Some of you were on this council when I lived and worked in Monroe County as well. Most of you know, I'm the Director and Chief Counsel for the Public Defender Commission up in Indianapolis. Again, as Heather stated well, we send back 2 counties that agree to abide by our standards for public defenders, 40% of your public defense expenses and reimbursement from the state. We have never been in the position to proactively provide anything. Really, we are a reimbursement model. You control our expenses, and we send 97 to 98% of every dollar we get from the state back to counties. But in this last legislative session, at the end of session, the legislature gave us $2 million per year for this biennium that we are currently in for at-risk youth and families. That's literally what it says in House Bill 1001 is at-risk youth and families, $2 million per year. And we are being proactive with it for the first time ever. So it's a little bit of a learning experience for us as well as everyone else. But we have been in discussions with the Supreme Court and FSSA and DCS for years about something akin to what we're calling these system navigators. In fact, it was FSSA that suggested the term. But essentially, we have families that don't have a lot of sophistication as to how to interact with the Department of Child Services and all the various service entities that they and tasks that they are obligated to complete in a child in need of services and termination of parental rights case. And lawyers, although they abide by our standards on training to be a lawyer, they do not have that experience to go to a child family team meeting or go and watch and supervise a service provider visit and know what's supposed to happen, or to even advise a client on what a particular service might detail in quite the same level that someone else can. I have recently been finished doing GAL work in Monroe County, and I have a family that has been involved with the Department of Child Services for over 3 years and on like their 7th or 8th case manager. And people just fall through the cracks. DCS has had a lot of turnover, a lot of turmoil over the years. They're working on a lot of different reforms and doing a lot of good work on that front. But the public defense side has a unique opportunity to really impact parents and families. These are people that come into the public defense office where the state has chosen to intervene in their lives. And the only person they can really trust at that point is the public defender system. They're the only person that is on their side that didn't take their children, right? And DCS funds all those service providers. So they kind of question their relationship with them. And I say all this from the experience that I was the Monroe County DCS attorney before I was a Monroe County public defender as well. So I've had all those positions, even in Monroe County, and you were the county that first came to mind on where we might launch these system navigators. I got this pilot approved by the commission at the September meeting, and we've been working on trying to figure out how to actually implement this and find places to do this project, I should say. So essentially, we have not done an award letter. I want to be clear as well about that. We have not done an award letter yet because ultimately it's about if you approve these positions and then what other expenses can we include in it. There's really there's a $2 million limit, but there's not a lot of limits that we want to place on you. One of the nice things that I want to mention before I pass this back to Heather and to everyone for questions is that with this comes a strong data component. Also living in Bloomington is actually Dr. Liddell, who is on our staff at the commission. who does all of our statistics and data. And he is working with the Monroe County PD office to develop the data that is going to be collected and the data that will be reported and available to not only you, the county, but also to us and to the state. What we would love to see is if this makes market returns as similar positions have in other jurisdictions across the country. If this makes market good positive returns for families where children are returned home sooner, cases last less long, they're not lasting so long, maybe children are prevented from ever being removed if they start in home, things like that. If we can show those positive benefits, we would love to be able to continue to show the legislature that we need to keep this $2 million funding going forward, and then ultimately roll this out in other jurisdictions. We do have a couple of other pilots we're looking at launching as well that are a little bit different than this model. This model is literally what we've envisioned at the Public Defender Commission about how this could work. And I have already spoken with various service providers, DCS, everybody's very excited about this coming on board. So I do hope that you can approve these positions so we can finalize that award letter and get this going as soon as possible. I was fortunate enough to speak with PAC last week, and they quickly put us on this agenda so that we could try to get this begun in 2021 as early as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Ms. Duffel, any additional information that you had for us?
I just hope that we can get this implemented as soon as possible to start helping our community sooner.
It's very exciting. Yes, thank you very much. Michelle, I know that you had some things that you wanted to discuss as well too.
Yes, just for clarification, when you say it's 100% funded, does that include the FICA, the PERF, insurance costs as well?
And equipment, yep, equipment, and even the ability to bill us for some hourly work if necessary in order to collect all of the data and record it.
Okay, so do we need to then come up with a budget?
Yes.
Okay, and so I guess then, does that need to be on the shoulders of the public defender, or is that so that, because I know that she says that she wants this, these positions to be hired, and done right away, but
right.
I think we need to put some thought into a budget of some sort. And then my other question is, and this would be more for the council, she's requested this to be in the general fund. Now, is this like a grant or where it's going to need its own fund number? Or is this going to be money that we will collect and put into the general fund that's going to support these two positions in the general fund? Or do we need to create its own little fund itself? So that's some clarification we need before we can move forward with this, I believe. In my opinion.
Go in the public defender supplemental.
Or the supplemental, yeah.
Option. Yeah.
So to the extent that I can answer some of that, I will acknowledge that we're doing it all. This is not the normal way that things are done. Normally you send in a grant request, like we would like to have this operated, and here's our budget, and this is what we propose for our grant, and this is how we would like to, ask for this amount of money for this award time. A traditional grant. This is us as the grant authority reaching out to you to say, what can we do to have you guys receive money that you haven't asked for, but that I know would be really good here. And the PD's office is super excited about it. And we've been trying to work out logistics for a long time to make sure it would work in Monroe County. And so we're confident that it would, and it's just a matter of how we get that done. And so from our perspective, we want to mirror what the Supreme Court did, because we're judicial branch as well. We want to follow a leader in this area because we have not done this before. And so we want to do an award letter like an award that is similar to what the Supreme Court did for your pretrial certification program, where they funded a public defender out of that. So they're essentially giving grant monies in 6-month periods with a quarterly like an audit, a drawdown list of how you're spending those funds. And that is what we would anticipate doing, is providing those funds in advance, but they would be dedicated for this particular project. And I will be happy to do an award letter. Literally, I'm just waiting on the PD office and the county officials to work together to develop that exact itemized budget.
Okay.
So I appreciate all of Michelle's questions, very pertinent, very relevant. We need to, take all of that in consideration. Appreciate Mr. Mason's information there as well too. The last thing I want you guys to have to do is come back to us. So I hope that we can, and I may enlist Ms. Rice here to give us some guidance, but I hope there's a way that we can, make some preliminary approvals tonight and then just kind of figure out the details later. Is that something we can maybe able to do? Is that feasible? While Ms. Rice is joining, Ms. Hawk, did you have a question?
Seems to me if we would move forward with the salary ordinance, since they want to have somebody on board right away. And so that would mean if we would put in the salary ordinance for 2021, that adjustment, so that if that can happen that quickly, it will be in there. Whether or not they can actually have it happen, we will have already had the salary ordinance prepared for it. That might be our first step so that we can move this quickly. And then put together the rest of the budget. But that salary ordinance would have to be in the supplemental. How does that sound, Michelle?
That's what I was going to say. It would probably be the easiest to have it in the supplemental fund rather than the general fund.
Right.
And then
just tossed it out there just so we could get it on the agenda. And we figured we would let you guys hash out how you wanted it, but it was just the quickest way to get the item on the agenda.
Yeah.
The salary ordinance, dollar amounts, et cetera, would be?
Well, see, and that's my problem.
We
can give you a range, but until they figure out who to hire, we don't know if that person's going to have experience. Are they going to come in at the 3-year level? Is this going to be a newbie per se?
Yeah, I think those are details that we can address. Now, we've kind of got a good sense of what it could be. Ms. Rice, is there anything concerning to you about kind of doing this now and then figuring out some of these details later?
No, I think it's fine. And I'm looking at the agenda, which is it's a discussion and approval of additional positions and to simultaneously amend the 2021 and 2022 salary ordinance. I think tonight you can give that high level, big picture approval that yes, you want to approve these additional positions, that you will find the right place for them to land, but that your intention is to accept these that way the award letter can come to Monroe County and we can then, this can come back, staff, we can all bring this back to you for, the details later.
Yeah, maybe at the work session, perhaps. Yeah, we can get all that sorted out there.
And I think Kim brings up excellent points that we'll need to address and have, in the back of our minds as we move forward. But tonight, I think, you've discussed it. I think you can say, yes, if you want to approve these two positions, you move forward, knowing that you will then amend the salary ordinances and do the paperwork later.
Michelle?
Just to let the council know, they currently have investigators in their supplemental fund, and they are 40 hours at a Civ Pol 5. And the salary range for Civ Pol 5s is $43,139 through $49,275. So that they would fall in that range somewhere for that. And then I have an additional question for Derek. What is the time period for this use of this money?
So we have the funds given to us for the biennium. So it's July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2023 is our biennium. However, we have the ability to encumber funds. And so it would be my hope and anticipation that come 2023, that we have encumbered funds to cover you through the full year. At that point in time, we can reassess how things are going. My ultimate goal is for the county to look and see how great these positions are doing, is the hope that, and that the county's willing to hire them at the 40% reimbursement rate and, transition these to the 60% county paid, 40% reimbursed. But how quickly that happens, these cases are not short. Right? These cases can last years. And so for us to get good data, until we're able to be satisfied with the outcomes of our data, my goal is to continue to fund this as long as possible. So at a minimum, we should be able to fund it for the 2 years, from as soon as we can start 2022 and 2023, and then possibly even some level of reimbursement, or grant money beyond that, especially depending if the legislature continues to fund this budget line.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Ms. Hawk?
And yes, as you must know, if you're following Monroe County news, that that might just get us right into where we're having to make some tough decisions depending on what happens with annexation, because our funding drops way off. So it would be my hope that if we get somebody signing on board, we do the same as we do with any other grant dollars, which makes them understand it. If the grant runs out, we might not be able to extend that employment offering. So that's what, just a heads up. I just want to make sure that every time we have an opportunity to make sure the public understands that this annexation could change how we operate county government.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hawk. So we've got a few hands up here. We'll start with Ms. Wiltz.
I just wanted to check in. I know that my motion included the reference to the general fund. So I wanted to check in and see if I needed to make an amendment and remove the general fund from that.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. And do I want to put I forget what the name of the other fund is, or do I just want to say we're to be determined?
No, it's the Public Defender Supplemental.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I don't necessarily agree, but
okay.
What?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff. What?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily, I mean, if this is going to be a separate grant that's going to be maintained separately, it doesn't matter whether it's the general fund or the public defender supplemental. I don't think there's any point, there's nothing to be gained in moving from the general fund to the public defender supplemental. We ought to just acknowledge that right now the fund is to be determined, and we're approving this in principle. And I mean, at least that's my opinion. That we're approving this in principle, and that we know that we're going to have to get an actual fund number for the grant with a real budget for a grant.
Okay.
Ms. Rice, do you agree with that, or do you think?
Yes, I agree. I think that we do that high level approval with full acknowledgement in the record that the details are going to be worked out.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion then to eliminate reference to Fund 1000-0271 General Fund Public Defender and replace that with just fund to be determined.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on Ms. Wiltz's amendment? All right, seeing none, do we have any public comment? Looks like we do. Mr. Shelton, yes.
Good evening. So, Jim Shelton, on behalf of, as a CASA, I want to strongly encourage you to approve this. This is very exciting. It addresses a big need. you know, I will have been a CASA 9 years on Friday, and a lot of time, especially at the start of a case, is trying to get the parents to understand what's going on. And really, even as you go through the case, it's difficult to keep them aware of what's happening. DCS does have a lot of turnover, as Mr. Mason indicated. And quite frankly, the public defenders do a good job, but they are way overtaxed. They have too many cases. It's very often difficult for the clients to get the attention of or get access to the public defenders. And then quite frankly, the condition of the parents changes a lot, especially at the start of the case, because quite often drugs are involved. I've got a case right now where we had a hearing and the judge was reviewing what had happened, and the mom was denying that any of that had ever happened. And she had been totally under the influences of drugs for the first, 5 or 6 months of the case. So she had no recollection of any of that stuff at all. And yet she had, because she didn't have a program like this, she had not ever made contact with her attorney who had been appointed for her. She refused to have any interaction with them. If there was somebody like this who didn't have a whole bunch of other cases and could just stay after it, it would help a lot. And I think Mr. Mason will see the kinds of returns that are possible with making these cases not take quite so long. They do take. I just had one that just closed with reunification 2 weeks ago tomorrow that lasted for over 3 years. So it'll be tough to find your results, I think, in just 2 years. But please do approve this. I think it's a very exciting thing, and I think DCS probably does too. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Shelton. Let's see if we have any further public comment. Does not appear so. So we will we'll take a roll call vote on Ms. Wiltz's motion to amend.
Okay, I'm going to take care of that. Megan had to step away. Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wilt,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Okay, we'll now return to the underlying motion and see if we have any questions or comments. And Mr. McKim.
I did just want to thank Mr. Mason for speaking with us tonight and for having this kind of trust in Monroe County to kind of lead the way on this. This is really exciting. And yeah, it isn't that often that funding agencies actually come to us without even asking and hand us money to do things that are of value to our residents. So we really appreciate that. And I'm excited about this project.
Thank you, Mr. McKim. Mr. Deckard.
I likewise want to thank Mr. Mason for coming to a meeting that started at 5:30 and being here at 8:12 p.m. From the state. That we all know that good things can come from the state, but that's a tremendous commitment to us to approach this on this. When Heather first talked to me about this prospect, we were on the phone and my eyes lit up like a Christmas tree, because I think that the action that we're seeing from all of us on trying to get this approved and when it moved through PAC is really reminiscent of how much of an opportunity this is for the community. And it's huge. And I'm really grateful to hear Jim Shelton talk about it, because Jim Shelton comes to our meetings, talks about CASAs and the work that he sees firsthand. And I think that's been a positive influence on the feedback that we need. And I just want to express to Mr. Mason that we in this way love the fact that the state is going to help our children and our families take that data and then help others in the state. That is a beautiful concept. It's a win-win for this community. And I look forward to getting these details worked out and moving forward on this. It's huge. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Mr. Iverson.
Yes, Mr. Mason, thank you for being here this evening. My question to you is about the transparency of the data you will collect. And how will we be able to see that data? How will we be able to know all of the benefits and maybe some of the pitfalls that came out of this program?
Yes, so that's a great question. So, I mean, the data is going to be collected by Monroe County employees. So it's going to be collected by these system navigators. And we're actually, I mean, not to go too far into the weeds, but there's going to be a control group. So not every public defender is going to have access to the system navigator. So we can actually compare what the difference is in Monroe County against itself. And so it's not we're taking anything away from anybody, but there is going to be a subset of attorneys that will just continue doing what they always have done. And then some are going to have this new capacity. And, you know, I hope it's like a drug trial where, you know, halfway through you're like, it's just so good, everybody needs it. But, you know, we have to stop the trial. But, you know, we will be working with the Monroe County Public Defender's Office to develop that data and to share and provide any answers that you guys have, because every project that we are doing as part of this at-risk youth and families, and there are projects that are not system navigator oriented that we're developing as well. But this is the one I'm most passionate and excited about. And what I've said to everyone is that we have two goals here. Is one, for the county to be able to access and have whatever data it needs to be able to decide whether or not this works for your county. And then also from the state level, what does the state legislature need to see and what would other counties need to see to be able to make a decision about whether this would be helpful for them and whether or not to continue to fund this. So, I mean, as far as transparency goes, we'll give you every bit that we can. This does involve confidential case names and things like that, so we can't do everything, but you know, whatever we can share, more than happy to work with you if you have specific questions about can we look at it from this way, or if you have specific things that you would like to see collected, speak to your public defender office and myself, and we can look and see if we can collect that kind of data as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hawk, did you have a comment?
Just that what we could be talking about here is several different families involved with the same child. And, you know, you could have the grandparents or the aunt and uncle or whoever was providing the services. And so it takes all of that and people have to work through every one of it. And in the meantime, this child is getting possibly shuffled from post to post to post. And this is all about doing whatever we can so they know that they are being well cared for and somebody cares about what happens with them. I happen to know when my daughter tried to help one of her students, and we were going to try to adopt him, and we went through everything in the world. And so it takes this kind of support for the child, and I thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hawk. Anything further from council? All right, do we have any public comment on the underlying motion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Okay, Councilor Deckard?
Yes.
Councilor Wiltz?
Yes.
Councilor Munson?
Yes.
Councilor Iverson?
Yes.
Councilor Hawk?
Yes.
Councilor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Councilor McKim?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to being in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay, next up here is item 18, our council office.
Council, I move to approve the council office's request for an additional appropriation in Fund 1000-0061, General Fund Council, in the amount of $5,383 in the personnel category.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Hi, Ms. Shell.
This is a request is to help us finish out the year with our current part-time person because I expended some of my part-time funds over the summer with regards to the intern. So this will just help me get through the end of the year.
Sounds straightforward enough. Thank you very much. We'll see if we have any questions or discussion on the request. It was a very successful internship program that we had this year. I'm looking forward to continuing that again in the next year. I think some great opportunities for young people who are interested in local government. That was my major in kind of local government management, so kind of near and dear to my heart. Any questions or comments? Any public comment? Okay. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Counselor Wilt?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimous.
Okay, and up next is item 18B.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval Ordinance 2021-50, repeal of the Monroe County Juvenile Per Diem Fund.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Rice, are you will be presenting this one for us? Welcome.
Yeah, I'm going to make this quick. October 20th, the commissioners approved this ordinance. It repeals our juvenile per diem fund. I found in looking back at the legislation that both the commissioners and the council had their fingers on this fund in the past. So I decided to write it so both of you, the council and the commissioners, approved this repeal. So, 15 years from now, people look back, there's going to be no doubt at all that the commissioners and the council agreed to make this decision. This will just allow the money to go into the general fund. As you know, this was a great idea you guys came up with to make sure this is going to help fund the WIS study. Already, you can use these funds however you want for any general fund purpose. So this just gets rid of that separation of the funds and we'll put it all in the general fund. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it. I did put in this based on some information that Brianne Gregory had found. I put in an effective date at the, essentially the beginning of the year so that it's consistent with the way, I guess, the State Board of Accounts like these things to happen, at the beginning of the year. So you'll notice that effective date. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Yeah, let's see if we have any questions or discussion. Anything from council? We've spent some time on this in the past, so we're all familiar with it. It doesn't look like we have any questions or comments from council. Do we have any public comment? I don't see any public comments, so we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Wait,
Yes.
it said first reading in the agenda. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure.
Is it? Yeah, I'm
First
sorry.
reading of ordinance.
First reading.
It's discussion and approval. It does say first reading.
Yeah, since we advertised it as first reading, I want to make sure that we're not
But as long as if you guys approve it unanimously, it can happen in the first meeting in which it's approved.
And we wouldn't have to go back to second.
Okay.
So let's give it a shot on first reading here and see if we get a unanimous approval.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. And that will conclude, since we have continued everything else under item 18 to our next meeting on the 30th, that will conclude that item. Up next is item 19. And we have a litany of minutes here for approval this evening. So we have the September 9th, 2021 budget work session number 2, September 13th, 2021 budget work session number 3, September 14th, 2021 budget work session number 4, September 15th, 2021 budget work session number 5, October 4th, 2021 budget public hearing, the October 18th, 2021 budget first reading, and the October 19th, 2021 budget second reading and adoption. So our minutes, our staff who has been working on these minutes have been very busy. Lots of minutes there to present for us. Do we have any changes, modifications, or edits to the minutes? If so, please make those known at this time.
And I'm sure you all read them thoroughly.
They've all been read very thoroughly. More than I went through them twice. Just to be safe, just for good measure. And okay, so if we have no changes to the minutes are approved. We will now move on to item 20, which is council comments. And I think I'll get started here tonight with council comments. I want to read an invitation here from Mike Ferris, who is the commander of the Burton Woolery American Legion Post 18. And this was sent to all elected officials and many in the community. But just want to take this opportunity as we approach a very solemn and important holiday on Thursday. I want everyone to be aware this invitation was made. So we would like to invite all U.S. military veterans and their families to attend the Veterans Day celebration. This is the day to celebrate your service to your country, to share your stories with family and friends, and to show your pride in your service. Feel free to come in uniform, wear ribbons or medals, or just a military t-shirt. This event will be held on November 11th, 2021, beginning at 10 a.m. We will have a few guests, recognized veterans that have passed this year, honor our World War II and Korean War veterans with designated seating. At 11:11 a.m., the Monroe County Honor Guard will render honors and then conclude the event. A ham, beans, and cornbread lunch will be provided free of charge as long as it lasts. You are welcome to stay and visit, walk around the post. There's a lot of history there on the walls, and we are very proud of our post, and we are happy to share this with you. Again, an invitation from Mike Ferris, commander of the Burton Woolery American Legion Post 18, located at 1800 West 3rd Street, Bloomington, Indiana, 47404. I truly hope to see many of our elected officials from county government in attendance on Thursday, and I look forward to being at that event. Do we have any other comments from council members before we adjourn the meeting? Ms. Hawk.
Yes, just very quickly, wanted to share, not my puppy dog, I don't have one. I wanted to share very quickly for the many people who have contacted me to ask me that regrettably the answer is no. Our lovely Christmas tree or winter tree or whatever anyone wants to choose to call it will not be in the rotunda this year. I know that many will be very disappointed. I did my best to try to convince those in charge of the situation and was not able to be successful at that. So I know that that tree was purchased through community support, and when Jane Marie was here with county government, she got the dollars put together so that the community bought that tree, and we've enjoyed seeing that tree in the rotunda, and the community absolutely love seeing it in the rotunda. So I really regret that's not going to happen, but I don't want to have to try to contact all these people. So I'm going to say it here publicly, and hopefully they will get the message.
Okay, thank you for your comments, Ms. Hawk. Do we have any other council members who would like to make comment here before we adjourn? Ms. Munson, yes.
I would just like to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving. We won't meet until after Thanksgiving. So be very safe in your travels and have a wonderful time with family and friends. It's a blessed time.
It is. I'm looking, thank you, Ms. Munson, for that. I'm looking forward to actually spending this Thanksgiving with my family. We didn't get to do that last year, but really looking forward to that time this year with my family. Any other comments? All right. Well, seeing none, it's been a very productive meeting tonight. We got a lot of important things worked out here tonight. So we will look forward to our next meeting on November 30th, our work session. And we are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.